to stand at ease until
Yes, Your Honor. Supreme Court stands at ease.
Pick up where we left off yesterday. I believe Lieutenant Rigsby was on the stand. Lieutenant Rigsby, do you recognize you're still under oath, sir?
Yes, sir, I do.
Very good. Mr. Bone, Mr. Latour.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Latour.
Thank you, Your Honor. Lieutenant, welcome back. I think where we left off yesterday is that you had been in the house that belonged to the defendant with his mother, and you had now made it outside and were talking to her.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And I believe she had told you, or she was questioning where her son was, the defendant, and you indicated you thought that he was involved at that point.
Yes, sir. She was hysterical. Again, she kept asking where Austin was. She was worried, excuse me, about him. I don't know if it was me, but a group of officers that were there had called for some medical attention for her to get her transported to the hospital. And then I had relayed the information that I had discovered inside the house to my supervisors to let them know that I believed, or in fact, that I knew that Austin was going to be the individual that was pinned down in the barn.
Now, at the time that you are having this interaction, have you gained any other video evidence or anything else? And when I say you, I don't mean you personally, but the Raleigh Police Department. Had you gathered any video evidence from the neighborhood about this shooting?
Yes, it was sometime pretty much after that, because again, everything was happening so fast, and there were, probably hundreds of officers or detectives that were there that were doing different things, and information is getting funneled in. So yes, I was made aware that there was video of the defendant walking down the street armed with a long gun.
All right. And you talked about when you went in the house some of the things that you found and saw, correct?
Yes, sir.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
All right, Detective, Lieutenant, I'm sorry. I'm gonna show you State's Exhibit 6. You've looked through this already, correct?
Yes, sir.
And are those photographs of the home that you entered into and kind of depicted as you saw it that day?
That's correct.
All right. And I'm going to show you State's Exhibit number 7. You've also looked at that, correct?
Yes.
And are those photographs from inside that bathroom that you discussed where you found the other victim, James?
That is correct.
All right. And again, fair and accurate depiction?
Yes.
All right. Your Honor, at this time the State would move to introduce State's Exhibits 6 and 7.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
And I'm going to ask to publish State's Exhibit 6 on the big screen.
Yes, sir. Are you ready?
Yes, Your Honor. Now, Lieutenant, the first photograph is 4720. This is inside the residence, is that correct?
That is correct. Based on my recollection, again, so like behind where the photographer would be in this picture would be the garage door that led from the inside of the house to the garage.
Is that the door that you came in from?
That is correct.
All right. And again, we've heard some testimony about placards before, but these have some labels A, C, D, and E. When you were inside the home, obviously those placards were not initially there, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. But do you know what was kind of at those locations?
So I believe that these locations, they would have been blood droplets or blood smears.
Okay. And I'm going to take you to the next photograph, which is 4759. And that's a close-up of that chair, the hardback chair that we just saw there.
Yes, sir.
And here, what are we looking at there?
So that appears to be blood droplets or blood stains on the edge of that chair.
All right. And the next photograph, which would be 4843, we have a pillow. Do you know what if any, significance there was for this pillow?
There was some blood on that pillow as well.
We'll zoom in a little bit. It may help to see it. Is that these speckled spots that we're seeing?
That's correct. I would constitute that to be what I would call blood splatter. That was probably after an initial wound.
And so that pillow, was that nearby those chairs?
I do believe that it was, yes.
We'll
by where the gaming chair was and then the chair that was next to that.
Okay, we'll go back to 4720, which is the first photograph. Do you see it here at all?
Is that it right there on the left side? Yes, that's it. If I could elaborate just
Sure.
a little bit, that's okay. The gaming chair was pretty much where it was, and then there was blood. So to the left, it was determined based on the evidence that's there in the blood that the gaming chair was there facing the TV when I believe that the shot to the back of the head occurred, and blood then spattered on both sides of that onto the pillow and then onto the chair, and most likely the victim, James, kind of fell over onto that chair, which why there's more blood on that.
All right, and if we zoom in on the gaming chair, does there also appear to be like a game controller and headset on it?
That's correct.
Okay. So, moving back ahead, we just talked about the pillow. The next photo would be 4960. What are we looking at here?
So this is continuing from where the gaming chair, that chair with the blood droplets, and the first picture that you would have seen with the placards, we're kind of following those placards as they're going back toward the back of the residence. There's a couch there that's on the right-hand side if you were facing those placards moving toward the back, and that's a blood smear that is, well, in my opinion, moving from where the gaming console was or chair was back toward the back bedroom.
Okay. And the next photograph, 4993, we're moving further down,
Yes, sir.
and another placard.
Yes, sir.
And the next photograph, which would be 5005, are we now at the end where that last placard was, and do we again see a blood smear?
But yes, there's a blood smear there on the other end of the couch, about the same level as the first one. And then you see the continuation in this photo of another placard G that is going to the back bedroom there, primary bedroom. So the smear kind of continues around the couch into that bedroom.
Okay. And so we'll go to 5056, which is the next photo. Is this G?
That is correct.
And it doesn't show well, but to your memory, did there appear to be blood smears on the ground there?
It's either the ground or there's there on the door. I can't tell based on this picture if that's a blood smear that's there or not. But there, for the placard to be there would have been an indication of blood.
All right. And then the next photograph, which is 5086, we've got more placards. Is this the master or the primary bedroom?
That's correct. It was what I determined to be the primary bedroom. The placards follow all the way back from the gaming chair all the way through what I would call the living room area of the residence into the primary bedroom. And each placard, there is blood smear on the floor.
Okay. And we see this doorway here at the end. Is this the primary bathroom that you entered into that had James in it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Also, and I think there are some photos that may show this a little better, but on the bed here, was there anything of note?
There's two long guns there on the bed, if I remember correctly, and I believe there was a bag that was also there on that bed.
Okay. And so the next photograph, which is 5116, is this that master bedroom leading into the bathroom?
That is correct.
Okay, and we can see, unfortunately, feet there.
Yes.
Okay. Now, to the right in that photograph is placard 28. Do you know what that was?
I do. So when we went in there, initially I didn't recall seeing it, but then as we came back through, did a secondary search of the residence, I do recall seeing that note that was there on the dresser.
Okay, and we'll move ahead then to 5131. Is this the note?
That is the note.
And do you know what it says?
Sure. It says, "James dead inside, don't look."
And sitting on top of that note, what is this?
That is a spent cartridge from a gun.
Okay. Do you know if that was a 20, later determined to be?
Yes, it was a 22.
Now, 5275, which is the next photo, I believe this is inside of that bathroom. Is this the doorway leading back out into the bedroom?
So that is the doorway that's leading back out to the bedroom, and so this is just inside the bathroom to the right, and it's about halfway up the wall. So about right, you can see where the door jamb would be, where the I guess doorknob.
Here.
So it's a little high, yes, sir. So it's a little higher than the rest of the smears, like on the couch. So it's a little bit higher, and then on the floor there is where James is laying.
All right. And we've got some photos that we'll discuss about that.
Sure.
But skipping ahead to the next photograph that we have, is this back into the primary bedroom?
This is the primary bedroom, and with the firearm that's there on the bed, and then the bag. Two firearms, yes.
And this is the bag you were talking about?
Yes, sir.
And then the next photograph, then, is that inside of that bag?
That is correct.
And this appear to be ammunition?
It is ammunition.
Then 5701, we're still in that primary bedroom?
Yes, this is a closet. The dresser with the note is in the front of the picture there. This is a closet that's over to the right.
Okay. And was this of note because these boxes had...
That's correct. So there's a box that's there, and I believe that box had a scope was on that, in the box at some point.
So 5713 is the next photo. Is that inside of that box?
Yes, sir.
Let's say Weaver scope.
Yes.
All right. And then there's another box that was in there as well, which is 5716.
That is correct, and that is a box of ammunition.
All right. The next photo, when you go back out of that bedroom, is 5752, and kind of, can you orient us here about where we are and what was of note to you in this location?
Yes. Again, my recollection and not having remembered this for 3 years, but the bathroom that's there on the left, I want to say that's where the mother was. when we entered the residence and actually had to get her out of there. If I remember right, the garage would be back over to the right-hand side, not pictured, the garage door. But leading into that was what I later determined to be Austin's bedroom.
This?
Straight ahead, yes.
Okay. And is this his brother's bedroom?
That was what I later determined, yes.
All right. And from this doorway, can you see a gun on that bed?
I do see a long style gun on the bed.
All right. The next photograph is 5755, and you can again see the gun on the left. Is this the bedroom that you determined to be James's?
That is correct.
Okay. And 5761, I believe, is entering into James's room. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And what, if anything, of note was found in here?
So there's there's a computer on the bed, and there's another long gun there stretched across the bed as well.
Okay. And 5770, what are we looking at?
That's just another angle of what we just saw with the long gun, and then AirPods and the laptop.
And 5836 is the next photograph, and is this James's room?
That is correct.
I'm sorry, Austin's room?
Sorry, it is Austin's room, yes.
All right. And we see some things other than the long gun on the bed. What are we noticing here?
So I believe that those are going to be stacks of ammo or ammo boxes.
Okay. And so the next photo is 5839. Is this a closer up photo of that?
Yes, sir.
And so you've got the long gun, ammo, and is this also ammo in Ziploc bags?
That is ammo in Ziploc bags. I want to, if I remember correctly, some of those boxes are empty, as if the boxes were emptied into the Ziploc bags.
Okay. And is this the note that you said you located?
That is correct. That is the note that I located, read, and then provided that information to commanders over there on the scene.
Is this kind of how it looked when you got in there?
That's pretty much exactly how it was.
There also appears to be, this is toilet paper and some other stuff over here.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the next photograph is 5854. Is that a close-up of that ammunition that you were talking about?
Yes, it is.
And 5857, again, the long gun and note.
Yes, the note, and then based on, after seeing this note, and then back in the other photo with the note saying, James is dead, don't go in there, it looks like it was torn from that page.
Okay. The next photograph is 5917.
This is a photo that from the same bed, but it's after investigators had gone in and put it all together for a photo.
Okay. Kind of organizing.
It is just to show the different manufacturers or different types of ammo that was there, and to show the quantity of it.
And the next photo is 5965. Is this on the ground at the foot of the bed?
Yes.
And are these empty ammunition boxes?
Yes.
Okay. And the final photograph of this section is 6001. That appears to be behind the closet door. Is there two more long guns and some shotgun shells?
Yes, that is what that photo depicts.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
If I may approach again, Your Honor.
Yes.
I'm going to show you again State's Exhibit 7, which are the photographs. And if you can, the first photograph there is 5188, and just kind of tell us what we're looking at.
Sure. Photo 5188 is the primary bathroom of the house. And this is a picture that is taken once you step into the bathroom. And the last photo that we saw in there, the bathroom, the blood smear on the right. If you step back to the left and take a photo down of the ground, it's a picture of James that's depicted there on the floor of the bathroom.
Okay. And the next photograph is 5215.
Okay. This is the lower half of James. His feet are kind of up in the air, and then he has blood on the lower extremities.
The next photograph, 5224.
This is a further up image of the torso of James laying in the bathroom. His face is to the left. There is a large amount of blood underneath him, and he's wearing the shorts and another garments kind of over.
Okay. And then finally, 5266.
So this is just a higher up picture of James lying in the bathroom, heavy amount of blood that is on the floor, and a photo of him lying there dead.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I would publish these to you via the book.
Yes. Yes.
I don't have any other questions at this time, Your Honor.
Questions for this witness?
Yes, just a few. Lieutenant Rigsby, I want to talk about the 14th, the day after this.
Okay,
You were back at the Thompson home, correct?
that is correct.
And this was a really big case, right?
Yes,
And so you wanted to make sure you memorialized anything that could be relevant, right?
I don't understand.
You wanted to take note of anything that could be important.
The 14th or the day of the incident?
The 14th.
I don't know that I was there to do that.
Your Honor, may I have just a moment?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. I apologize, Your Honor. It's just taken a moment. Handing you what I have marked as Defendant's Exhibit 1. Does this appear to be a page of your report?
It does.
And if we could come down here to this paragraph, second to last, does it note a date there?
It does, the 14th, October the 14th, and it says 2020.
And then if we move to the second paragraph, does that indicate that you went to the Thompson home that afternoon?
That's correct.
Okay. And you can hold on to that.
Sure.
As we discussed, you wanted to make sure you took note of anything that could be important later, right?
Well, so to answer your question, yes, but it was mainly I wanted to take note of anything of my actions, of what I did, what I was asked to do there, and then anything that could come back on me later. So deciding what's important, I don't know that that's a fair, but I described my actions of what I did in this report.
Absolutely. And while you were there, a delivery driver came by the house, right?
That is correct.
And delivered a package with Austin's name on it, right?
Correct. And the reason why that was placed in there was because I was there with other officers, no one else there, and the house was in police custody. The delivery driver, if you want to call it delivered, he threw the package from his truck. He threw it because crime scene tape was still around. The road was open, but the house was still secured. So he stood there, threw the package. Well, it's in police custody, or the house is, so I wanted to make sure whatever that was, I didn't want to be responsible because I saw it. It could have been important. So yes, I picked the package up, documented what it was, and took it inside.
And that package, it was some medication, is that right?
That is correct.
Prescription medication?
Yes.
Called minocycline?
That is what was on the box or the bag.
And you noted that that had been prescribed by a dermatologist, correct?
That is correct.
All right, thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Anything further, Mr. Resort?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. You may
Thank you.
sit down.
This go to you.
Your Honor.
Thank you.
Move for admission.
I have not, Your
All
Honor.
right.
Thank you.
Further evidence for the state?
Yes, Your Honor. The state intends to call Dr. Nelson. Your Honor, may I approach?
Good morning, Dr. Nelson.
Good morning.
I'll let you sit your stuff down, sir. Place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right. Face the Madam Clerk.
Do you solemnly swear this testimony you give the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Be seated.
Mr. McClure.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Nelson, I'm going to ask you a couple questions about some autopsies that you performed related to this case. And, Your Honor, I would, at this time, we've prepared a binder that includes all of the autopsy materials for this doctor and Dr. Yell, who I believe will be testifying. We would move to introduce State's Exhibit number 8.
We have no objection, as long as none of those are deemed hopeless.
Right.
That's the point of the book.
Through the notebook to notify.
Yes, no objection.
If I may approach the witness with State's Exhibit 8.
Yes.
Doctor, I'm sure that you brought your own stuff along, but we've got some photographs that I believe were taken to assist you, and they will be contained in that notebook as well as the autopsy report and any other documentation related, if that would be helpful.
Thank you.
And so this is a little different than normal because we don't have a jury here, and so I know His Honor knows a lot of this information, so we can do it a little bit differently, but I want to walk through this with you individually, each autopsy that you performed, and you can kind of give us what your findings were as far as the injuries and describe what we're seeing in the photographs, if that works for you.
Certainly.
Okay. And just tell us a little bit about yourself, who you're employed by, how long you've been doing it, and what your licensure is.
My name is Craig, C-R-A-I-G, Nelson, N-E-L-S-O-N. I am an Associate Chief Medical Examiner at the North Carolina Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. I have a Bachelor of Science in Biology from Wake Forest University and a medical degree from Wake Forest University School of Medicine. I completed a 4-year anatomic and clinical pathology residency at the University of Arizona in Tucson and a 1-year forensic pathology fellowship at the San Diego County Medical Examiner's Office. I then worked as a deputy medical examiner for the County of San Diego for 5.5 years until 2014, when I came back here to my home state to take my current position. I am licensed to practice medicine in California and North Carolina. I am board certified in anatomic and clinical pathology and board certified in forensic pathology. To date, I've completed over 4,000 autopsies and been qualified as an expert witness in forensic pathology for purposes of testimony over 140 times.
Thank you, Doctor. At this time, the state would move to introduce Dr. Nelson as an expert in forensic pathology.
Any objection?
No objection.
His testimony will be received as proper.
Thank you, Doctor. Your Honor. Doctor, I guess first I would ask to start with, did you perform an autopsy on a Mary Marshall?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And so I would like to focus our inquiry as to this on Mary Marshall to begin with, if that's okay.
Of course.
Well, I guess before we do that, generally, how many autopsies did you perform related to this case?
3 in total.
And of the 3, did they suffer, and you'll probably not like this question, but did they suffer similar types of injuries?
The
Meaning the manner in which they were injured?
The 3 people upon whom I performed autopsies all sustained shotgun wounds.
All right. And I asked you that about the shotgun wound. Was that important for you in making whatever findings and that you would make in this case, and in how you viewed what the evidence that you were looking at?
Yes, because of the particular nature of how shotguns and their ammunition can affect the body.
Can you tell us what about that was important for you and why?
That's a long answer,
Okay.
but we began by defining that a shotgun is a smooth-barreled firearm that can fire a variety of ammunition. That may include birdshot, which are small pellets commonly used for hunting birds. It can include slugs, which are large, generally solid projectiles. And it can include buckshot, which are larger pellets, roughly the same diameter as a 9mm bullet. And when the shotgun fires buckshot pellets, it fires several at a time. Standardly with a 2 3/4 inch shotgun cartridge with double-aught buckshot, that's 00, which is a fairly standard size of buckshot, we see 9 pellets in each shotgun cartridge. And so that means that each time the shotgun is fired with that ammunition, we expect to see 9 different pellets coming out of the end of the weapon. We also have to add that in addition to buckshot that's fired from the shotgun, within a shotgun cartridge is what might be referred to as wadding or a shot cup. And this is generally a piece of plastic in which those buckshot pellets are carried. So when the shotgun is fired, the shot cup leaves the end of the barrel carrying those buckshot pellets. That shot cup then opens up and the pellets continue to travel forward, potentially striking whatever the target may be. If the shotgun is close enough to a person, then that shot cup may be deposited within the shotgun wound because there is sufficient force behind it. Or if the range is a little more distant, that shot cup may strike the body but not actually enter the body. And then even a little farther distant, the shot cup falls away while the pellets continue to travel forward and strike a target or a body, as the case may be.
So,
if I may continue,
yes.
One other important part about the firing of a shotgun with buckshot pellets is that initially those pellets travel together as a tight cluster. The farther away they get from the shotgun, the farther apart those pellets spread. And so at a closer range, a shotgun wound may be present as one entrance through which all pellets traveled. At what we can call an intermediate or in-between range, there may be one central cluster where multiple pellets entered and a few outlying pellet entrance wounds. And at a more distant range, we may see a series of individual entrance wounds. And I provide this entire background because among these 3 people, we saw a variety of characteristics of shotgun wounds. So that background is important.
what I wanted to ask you about the wadding or the cup, and you discussed a little bit about that being an indicator or a potential indicator of distance or range of fire. other things might affect that as well, though, correct? Such as a barrier in between the person and the shotgun being fired.
That is correct. If a barrier is between the shotgun and the subject, it's possible that the shot cup may strike that barrier and not strike the person.
You talked a little bit about the pellets that are contained in the shotgun cartridge as well as the wadding or the cup. Is there also a thing that is important to you called about filler in the shotgun?
There is. Shotgun cartridges, as we're discussing here, may have a little bit of a complex anatomy. The shot cup, as I mentioned, contains the buckshot pellets, and within the shot cup and among those buckshot pellets is what I refer to a cartridge filler material. It's a white granular substance. As I understand, its purpose is to disperse the forces causing the shot cup and pellets to exit the firearm. It basically packs the space between the buckshot pellets. So if a shotgun is discharged close enough to the skin surface, in addition to the body being struck by pellets, by the shot cup, it may also be struck by that cartridge filler material. To add to that, when a firearm is discharged, there may also be soot, smoke, flame, and burning and unburned gunpowder particles. Close enough to the skin surface, some or all of that material may also be deposited around or even within a wound.
Now, is all that information that you use and is helpful to you in making findings in a case?
Yes.
All right. And so, having discussed your understanding of shotguns and their anatomy, I would like to talk to you now about Ms. Marshall and some findings that you made about injuries that she suffered. When you looked at Ms. Marshall, were you able to make any determination or form any opinion about the number of times that she was struck or shot?
Yes.
And what was your opinion?
Ms. Marshall had 2 separate shotgun wounds. She had a shotgun wound of the head and neck. The entrance was on the left side of her chin, approximately where I'm pointing on myself. Around that entrance wound was soot and stippling. Let me define that, please. Stippling refers to pinpoint or very small dot-like abrasions or scrapes around an entrance wound. Generally, that occurs from gunpowder particles striking the skin. It may also occur from shotgun cartridge filler material striking the skin. And in fact, with this entrance wound on the left side of her chin, she also had deposition of that cartridge filler material that I just mentioned.
And the second wound that she suffered?
The second, I should preface that by saying there's no information from the autopsy that allows a scientific determination of the order in which her 2 shotgun wounds occurred. So the other shotgun wound that we might refer to was of her shoulders and neck. The entrance was on the back of her right shoulder, approximately where I'm pointing on myself. Pellets traveled through her shoulders and neck and exited the left side of her neck and her left shoulder.
Now, you've talked about entrance and exit wounds, and is it commonplace for you to be able to make an informed decision about what an entrance wound is and what an exit wound is?
Yes, as part of my training and expertise in forensic pathology.
All right. And were there clear evidence that you were able to locate in this case to make you sufficiently comfortable saying where the entrances and exits were in this case?
Yes.
All right. The injury wound that we discussed first, to the head and neck, you discussed an entry and an exit. Can you tell us what type of damage that wound inflicted?
We didn't quite get to the exit, so
Okay.
we'll start. The entrance again was on the left side of the chin. The exit was on the right occipital scalp, or roughly the back of the head as I'm pointing on myself. Buckshot pellets traveled through her mandible or jaw, her tongue, her hard palate, the base of the skull, the brainstem, which comes off of the lower portion of the brain and goes down to the spinal cord, and the cerebellum, which you might think of as a lower portion of the brain. And then pellets exited the back of her head.
Okay. And the other injury that we discussed, can you tell us what the result of that injury was?
For the shotgun wound of her shoulders and neck, the entrance was on the back of her right shoulder. The exit was on the left side of her neck and her left shoulder, as mentioned. And pellets went through muscle and soft tissue. It went through the central cervical spine, that is the portion of the spine that makes up the neck, and obliterated the portion of the spinal cord going through her cervical spine.
And based on your findings, were you able to say that those are lethal wounds and were the cause of the death?
Either of these wounds individually would be expected to cause death. In combination, they did cause death.
And in the book in front of you, which is states exhibit number 8, the first tab A, if you can scroll back to or flip back to the first of the photographs and tell us, is that a photograph of an overall establishing photograph for Miss Marshall?
Yes, this is what I would commonly refer to as our identification photograph showing her face.
And in looking at that photograph, is there anything of note for the court?
In this photograph, we see the shotgun entrance wound of the left side of her chin, and we can see portions of the exit from the shotgun wound of her shoulders and neck.
We also see some red dots on her face. Do you know what those were?
The red dots that we see on her face are the stippling that I mentioned earlier.
Okay. And the second photograph there, what are we looking at?
The second photograph is a close-up of the left side of Ms. Marshall's chin, and it shows the entrance wound. It shows further stippling, and it's a little more difficult to appreciate in this photograph, shows soot, which indicates a closer range of fire.
Can you also see that filler material that we were discussing?
The filler material is also present as small white specks.
And there's is there a larger one there that is a little more visible at the top of the wound?
There is.
Okay. The next photograph, which is 4748.
The next photograph is another photograph of that entrance wound. This time the wound has been cleaned to show additional features. We still see stippling. We still do see some of the shotgun cartridge filler material as well, present as white specks, primarily at the edges of that entrance wound.
Okay. Anything else of note in that photograph?
The presence of soot, as mentioned previously, and the stippling.
All right. And then the next photograph?
The next photograph is a photograph of the back of Ms. Marshall's head. Prior to this photograph being taken, I shaved hair away to show the full features of a complex exit wound of the back of her head.
Is there anything else of note in that photograph?
We do see on her upper back some additional cartridge filler material that likely just fell back there in the course of her body being transported and moved.
And as a result of that injury, were you able to recover any pellets?
Yes.
And are they featured in the next photograph?
The pellets depicted in the next photograph were recovered from Ms. Marshall's head, and so associated with the shotgun wound of the head and neck with the entrance on the left side of the chin.
Okay. And I believe that's the photographs that you requested for that injury. As for the other injury, if we keep going, what is that first photograph of the other injury to the shoulder area?
The next photograph shows the shotgun entrance wound of the back of her right shoulder. And in this photograph, we see red dots around the entrance. That represents stippling. We also see a few more of those white specks, the granules from the filler material.
Anything else of note in that photograph?
No.
Moving on to the next photograph, what are we looking at?
The next photograph is a close-up view of that entrance wound. This is before the wound has been cleaned, and the primary purpose of inclusion of this photograph is to depict the abundance of filler material present around that wound.
And that's the white specks.
Correct.
Okay. The next photograph?
The next photograph is a close-up view of that entrance wound clean, and it shows primarily the degree of stippling present as red dots around that wound, and we do still see some of that filler material as well.
Okay. The next photograph?
The next photograph is a photograph of the right side of Ms. Marshall's neck, and it depicts an area of skin disruption from the travel of
Okay. Above the white label and to the right of the tattoo?
to the right of the tattoo in the photograph towards the neck in reference to Ms. Marshall's body.
Got it, thank you. And the next photograph?
The next photograph, the orientation is a little bit difficult. Ms. Marshall's left shoulder is towards the top of the photograph. Her neck is at the bottom of the photograph. Her chest is to the right of the photograph. And so we surmise that this depicts a view from above, if you will, and shows exit wounds of her left neck and shoulder, approximately where I'm pointing on myself.
Okay. Is there anything else of note in that photograph?
No.
And then the final photograph?
The final photograph shows 2 buckshot pellets that I recovered from Ms. Marshall's left shoulder.
Well, I said final, but there are 2 more. And the next photograph?
The following photograph depicts a buckshot pellet that I recovered from Ms. Marshall's left neck.
And now the final photograph?
The final photograph depicts a rather mangled plastic shot cup or wadding. I recovered this from Ms. Marshall's sweater. It was, based on its location, most likely associated with the shotgun wound of her shoulders and neck.
And you're basing that based on where you found it in the sweater?
That's correct.
Okay. Was there anything while you were going through and that we have not discussed as it relates to Ms. Marshall's autopsy that you performed that was of note to you in any determinations that you were able to make? Anything else that we haven't talked about that stood out to you about this autopsy?
No other major findings.
All right. And based on your autopsy of this individual, Ms. Marshall, were you able to determine the manner and cause of death?
Yes.
And what were that?
The manner of death was homicide. The cause of death was multiple shotgun wounds.
I believe the next autopsy that you were able to perform, well, and I didn't ask you this, Doctor, I'm sorry. Were you able to make any findings, or were you informed about how old Miss Marshall was at the time?
Yes. Ms. Marshall's age was 34 years.
And was there anything other than these injuries that she suffered that, in your opinion, would have led or caused her to die?
No.
Okay. Now I'll turn your attention to the autopsy that I believe you performed of Susan Carnett, which I have in the book as labeled B. And if you will, just kind of walk us through again for Ms. Carnett. How old was she?
Ms. Carnett was 49 years old.
Okay. And similarly to how we discussed the last, if you will tell us if you were able to determine how many times she was shot.
In the case of Ms. Carnett, it's a little bit more complex. She was shot by a shotgun a minimum of 3 times.
Why do you say that it's more complex for her as opposed to Miss Marshall?
The reason is that in addition to entrance wounds and exit wounds, Ms. Carnett's had additional separate injuries, including one on her right shoulder and one on each hand, that raised the possibility of more than 3 shotgun discharges, or that portions of her body may have been between the weapon and the major portion of her body that was struck. And
Meaning there might have been an obstruction between the major portion of her body and that obstruction being another part of her body.
correct, a better way to put that might be that her hands may have been raised between the shotgun and the major portions of where she was struck, which is head and neck.
All right. And so were you able to, in performing your autopsy and making the examinations, did you group any of these injuries together in an effort to organize it?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And how did you do that?
As standard for my practice in dealing with multiple shotgun or gunshot wounds, I arbitrarily assign letters to entrance wounds, exit wounds, and other injuries. There's no implied sequence, there's no implied severity. It's simply done for record keeping so that there is a correlation between the description in my autopsy report and labels that we can see in photographs.
Okay. And so in this instance, walk us through one of the injuries that you labeled.
I'll begin with a perforating shotgun wound of the head that I labeled as AE. So when I use that terminology AE, that means that the entrance wound was labeled as A and the exit was labeled as E. In this case, entrance A was on the left occipital scalp, approximately where I'm pointing on myself. That entrance wound had soot on underlying bone, meaning the barrel of the shotgun was very likely touching or nearly touching the skin surface when it was discharged, so that rather than material being deposited around the entrance wound, soot and other material was actually deposited within the entrance wound. In this case, pellets exited the top of Ms. Carnett's head, approximately where I'm pointing on myself, having passed through the skull and the brain. As part of the material from that shotgun wound, I recovered the shot cup or wadding from the brain as well.
And you've indicated that there was damage to the brain and to the skull. Was there any other damage that was the result of that injury for her? Or more specific damage?
No,
Okay. Anything else about that injury?
not at this time.
I know not labeling it in order, but just for our purposes, I will say the second injury that you labeled. Will you tell us about that injury?
The next labeled injury was a perforating shotgun wound of the head and neck, and I should define terminology. When I say perforating, I'm talking about when something enters and exits the body, as opposed to penetrating, where something enters the body and does not exit. This was labeled as BG, so the entrance was B, the exit was G. Entrance B was located on the left side of Ms. Carnett's chin, and that had associated stippling, so those red abrasions or dots that we talked about previously. The pellets passed through her jaw or mandible and her tongue, and they exited the right side of her neck, approximately where I'm pointing on myself. So entrance where my left finger is showing, exit approximately where my right finger is showing. I did not recover any pellets or any wadding or shot cup from that wound.
Okay. Anything else about the injuries for that wound?
No.
Right. And was there another wound that you labeled and discussed?
The next labeled wound was a perforating shotgun wound of the neck and head, CF. So entrance C, exit F. Entrance C was on the left side of the neck, approximately where I'm pointing on myself. It also had stippling. The exit was on the left occipital scalp, approximately where I'm pointing on myself. In this case, with this wound, pellets perforated major neck structures, including the left external jugular vein, the left common carotid artery, the left internal jugular vein, the left pharynx, which is part of the throat, and injured the left occipital skull, but pellets from this wound did not actually enter the cranial vault, the space where the brain is located.
Any other injuries or anything that was important in your findings for that particular set?
No.
Now, I do want to ask you, you made findings based on the stippling and soot, I think more so the soot on the first injury we discussed. Were there any findings here about range of fire for you?
For the other two shotgun wounds that I mentioned, both had stippling around those. The presence of the stippling around the wounds that I labeled as BG and CF indicates that the range of fire, that is how far the weapon was from the body's surface, was greater than the range of fire for the perforating shotgun wound of the head, AE.
Okay. What was the next grouping that you discussed or made findings for?
The next wound was a deep graze wound of the right upper arm, so approximately the area that I'm pointing on myself. This was a smaller wound because it did not represent an entrance of a number of pellets. It did, however, have stippling as well, indicating what we can call an intermediate range of fire.
Okay. Anything else about that injury?
No.
When you say deep, what classifies as deep versus some other descriptor?
I would, as opposed to superficial, so a superficial wound would not go far below the skin surface, if at all. A deeper wound should go through the skin surface and into underlying tissues.
Okay. And the next injury that you discussed was also, or reviewed, was that also a graze wound?
Yes, it was. I labeled this as H, and it was a graze wound of the right hand, approximately where I'm pointing on my own right hand. And that graze wound also had stippling. I should mention, just for the sake of definition, when I'm talking about a graze wound, this is where a projectile essentially scrapes by the skin surface without definitive entrance and exit wounds.
Okay. Any other findings about that graze wound?
No.
Any other injury?
One other injury associated with the shotgun, a small graze wound of the left thumb. So the tip of the left thumb had a graze wound, and that also had associated stippling.
Okay. Did you note any other injuries that she suffered?
Ms. Carnett also had a fracture of her left clavicle or collarbone, approximately where I'm pointing on myself. This injury was outside any of the shotgun wound tracks and may have occurred from a collapse or fall.
Okay. Was there any other, or were there any other findings related to injuries that she suffered, Ms. Carnett's?
No.
Okay. And so now we'll kind of skip ahead and we can walk through and you can, if you will, show us the photographs and discuss those injuries that you were just discussing when reviewing the photographs. And so we have that first photograph, which is the identifying shot, and kind of tell us what we're seeing.
Please give me a moment to get there.
Yes.
The first photograph is the identification photograph of Ms. Carnett. We can see 3 entrance wounds on her body, one of the left side of the chin and one of her neck, as I'm pointing on myself. And then on the right side of her neck is a shotgun exit wound.
Okay. And the next photograph you have labeled A and E.
I'll also add, before we go along, there are numerous red dots on Ms. Carnett's face, and those all together represent stippling from the entrance wounds.
Got it. Yes, sir. The next photograph, which is A and E.
The next photograph, I'll begin by providing orientation. Ms. Carnett is face down on the autopsy table. Her back is to the right side of the photograph. Her head is turned to her right as well. In order to depict injuries, I have shaved a strip of hair along the top of her head. We can see two labels, A and E. Those labels depict the shotgun entrance wound I labeled as A, and that's just below that letter A, and the associated exit, which is the exit I labeled as E, and that's just above the letter E appearing in this photograph. So together these show the entrance and exit of the perforating shotgun wound of the head, AE.
Okay. Is there anything else of note that you want to discuss in this photograph?
No.
Okay. The next photograph, what are we looking at?
The next photograph is a closer view. The body is in the same position, and this again depicts entrance A and exit E.
Okay. Anything of note other than what we've already discussed?
No.
Okay. The next photograph, what are we looking at there?
The next photograph depicts the plastic shot cup that I labeled as shot cup E and recovered from the brain.
Anything else about that photograph?
No.
Now moving on to the next photograph.
The next photograph depicts Ms. Carnett lying on her back. Her body has been cleaned. We can see two shotgun entrance wounds, one labeled as B and one labeled as C. The entrance labeled B is on the left side of her chin. We can see around that a great deal of stippling. The entrance labeled C is on the left side of her neck. And around that wound as well, we can also see a great deal of stippling.
You discussed stippling a little bit earlier, but when you're describing this, you're saying that this is a great deal of stippling. Does that have any significance to you, the quantity or amount of stippling that you're seeing?
If we test fired the same weapon with the same type of ammunition and were able to determine the spread that should occur and would be expected to cause that degree of stippling, we might make some correlations to range of fire. Otherwise, its presence is that there is a lot. This does indicate an intermediate range of fire.
Okay. And the next photograph?
The next photograph is a close-up of the shotgun entrance wound labeled as B, and again shows the extent of the stippling.
Can you also see that filler material in this photograph?
Small pieces of the filler material are visible around the edges of that wound, as well as in the lower part of the photograph, a little bit out of focus, but present as white specks.
Okay. Anything else about that photograph?
No.
And the next photograph?
The next photograph is a photograph of the exit of the right side of the neck that I labeled as G.
And in looking at that photograph, what was of note to you?
We do see some stippling, but we know that because this is an exit wound, that stippling is actually associated with some other shotgun discharge. Otherwise, nothing.
You can also see some filler there?
That's correct.
Okay. And the next photograph?
The next photograph is a close-up of shotgun entrance C on the neck. We can see a lot of stippling around there and a large area of abrasion above the wound that does not have particular value for interpretation.
Okay. Anything else about that photograph?
Other than the presence of some more of the filler material, no.
Okay. Then moving on to the next.
The next photograph depicts the exit wound labeled as F. That's associated with entrance C on the neck. This is of the left occipital scalp, approximately where I'm showing on myself, after I have shaved around the edges of that wound to show its features.
Having discussed that as you just did, is there anything else of note here?
No.
Okay. Then moving on to the next photograph.
The next photograph is a photograph of the shot cup. I recovered this shot cup in association with the perforating shotgun wound of the neck and head CF, and this was recovered from her hair.
And the next photograph?
The next photograph depicts pellet fragments that were recovered from her body and really could not be associated. Excuse me. These were recovered from her hair, most likely in association with the perforating shotgun wound of the neck and head CF.
And you say most likely because you can't be certain, but otherwise consistent based on your findings.
And their location, yes.
Okay. Anything else about that?
No.
Okay. Then moving on to the next.
The next photograph depicts Ms. Carnett's lying on her back. Her head is at the top of the photograph. We see a side view of her right arm, and it depicts the deep graze wound that I labeled as D.
Anything else that we are to take note of in this photograph?
Towards the front of her body, we can see red specks or abrasions, and that represents the stippling that I mentioned earlier associated with this wound. We can also see that as a result of this wound, there is exposure of subcutaneous fat and muscle. Getting back to how I defined and why I defined this as a deep graze wound as opposed to something more superficial that would not have affected the subcutaneous fat or the muscle in the area.
Okay. Anything else that we're noting here?
No.
Then moving on to the next photograph.
The next photograph is a close-up view of the graze wound that I labeled as D. Again, to the front of the body or to the right side of the photograph, we can see stippling.
Okay. Anything else there?
No.
Then the next photograph.
The next photograph depicts the deep graze wound, the small graze wound of the right hand. So approximately on the back of my right hand as I'm showing, just below the letter H. And we can see around that are a number of abrasions that represent stippling.
Okay. Anything else of note in this photograph?
No.
Then the next photograph.
The next photograph depicts the small graze wound of the left thumb that I labeled as I. In this photograph, we can see an injury of the tip of the left thumb and the letter I above that as a label. We can also see the presence of stippling on the thumb and the index finger.
Is there anything else of note in that photograph?
No.
So other than the injuries that we have just discussed, based on your examination of Ms. Carnett's, were you able to make any determination, other than the injuries that we just discussed, was there anything else that you were able to determine that would have contributed to her cause of death?
There was not.
Okay. And based on your findings, did you form an opinion about manner and or cause of death?
The manner of death was homicide. The cause of death was multiple shotgun wounds.
Okay. Was there anything else of note that we have not discussed as it related to your examination of Ms. Carnett's?
No.
Okay. Then moving on to Ms. Ms. Connors, which is under tab C in State's Exhibit 8. Looking at your examination of Nicole Connors, were you able to determine how old she was at the time?
Yes, Ms. Connors was 52 years old.
And similarly, as we've just done on the last two, were you able to make any determination as to the number of times that Ms. Connors was shot?
Evaluation of injuries for Ms. Connors was more complex.
Okay. And why
If
is
we
that?
go back to the initial discussion about shotguns and shotgun wounds, we remember that as pellets travel farther away from the shotgun, they separate. And at a sufficient distance, each of the buckshot pellets fired can cause a separate entrance wound. And so, as opposed to the wounds that we've been discussing for our other two cases, we don't have a single individual entrance wound from a single shotgun discharge. We instead have numerous separate entrance wounds. Furthermore, in the case of Ms. Connors, we have pellets that entered the body, exited, and then re-entered the body. And so that creates a lot of difficulty in making a specific, scientifically determinable number of how many times a shotgun was fired at her. Taking her injuries all together, though, she has a minimum of 2 separate shotgun discharges, or I should say she has a minimum of injuries from 2 separate shotgun discharges. She also had a separate injury of her head and neck that may or may not have been from a shotgun and had features more likely from a handgun than from a shotgun.
Okay. And so, if you would, kind of as we have done before, were you able to categorize or group the injuries here?
In this situation, I did not attempt to apply any form of lettering because of the overlap of areas in which pellets entered, exited, re-entered, and re-exited, such that if you imagine a spread of pellets occurring in this area that I'm showing with my right hand, a separate overlapping spread of pellets that I'm showing with my left hand, it becomes impossible to separate those out. So what I did identify was that she had at least 34 separate pellet entrance wounds. Those were of her left upper arm, her left breast, her left back, her left chest, and her right upper arm. She also had at least 25 pellet exit wounds, and those were on her left breast, her left upper arm, and her right chest. From the number of pellets passing through her body, she had injuries of multiple ribs, T9, which is one of the bones of the spine. For reference, there are 7 spinal bones in the neck, C1 through C7, 12 in the chest or thorax, T1 through T12, so this was the 9th one of those. She had an injury of her spinal cord at that same level. She had injuries of her left humerus, which is the long bone of the left upper arm, injuries of her heart, her lungs, the diaphragm, which is the muscular sheet of tissue that separates the chest organs from the abdominal organs and is the main muscle of breathing, injuries of her liver, her stomach, her spleen, and her pancreas. As one additional finding associated with one of the shotgun discharges that struck her, she had an abrasion of her left hip that had a distinctive enough appearance in my training and experience to represent the impact of a shot cup. So that plastic cup had dropped away from the pellets but still had sufficient force to leave an injury of her left hip.
Were you able to determine any directionality of the pellets in this case?
The general direction of the pellets was from left to right.
Is there anything else of note for that group of 34 entrance wounds?
No.
Okay. Was there a second area of concern for you when you were making this determination of cause of death?
There was.
Where was that?
She had a single pellet wound, or more likely, a gunshot wound of her head. The entrance was on the right occipital scalp, approximately where I'm pointing on myself. The exit was on her right cheek, approximately where I'm pointing on myself as well. The projectile responsible for this injury passed through her body, injuring the right mastoid region, which is a bony area. You could think about it as under the ear, approximately where I'm showing on myself, and fractured her mandible or her jaw.
Now, you have opined that you say that is more consistent with a handgun rather than a shotgun pellet, and why are you making that determination?
The reason for that determination is that this injury was outlying. It had no other pellet injuries, no other findings around it. Its appearance was consistent with a handgun or gunshot wound from a handgun, but it's not scientifically possible to make that determination with 100% certainty. And so in my report, and as I'm doing here, I allowed for the possibility of either.
Okay. Was there anything else of note about the injuries or about her autopsy that you wanted to discuss before we move on to the photographs?
No.
Okay. And so then moving on to the photographs, and starting with your identification photograph, can you walk us through anything of note in that photograph?
The identification photograph for Ms. Connors depicts only one injury, and that's the exit wound from that perforating wound that I just discussed, and that's on her right cheek.
Okay. Anything else of note there?
No.
Okay. Then moving on to the next photograph.
The next photograph depicts entrance wounds on Ms. Connors' left arm and on her left breast as well.
Tell us what of note we're looking at and what you were able to determine from those.
This shows several of the entrance wounds and helps indicate the degree of overlap of pellets from separate shotgun discharges.
And how is that illustrated, if at all, the overlap here?
We see in this photograph that is taken of the left side of Ms. Connors' chest and arm. Her left arm is slightly away from the body, and we see an area of entrance wounds on her left arm as well as an area of entrance wounds on her right breast. So we can determine that likely a pellet spread from one or more shotgun discharges struck both of those areas almost simultaneously. Additionally, some of the entrance wounds that we can see on the left breast may have been from pellets that actually passed through the left arm before re-entering her body.
Okay. Is there anything else of note in that photograph?
No.
Okay. Then moving on to the next photograph, what are we looking at?
The next photograph depicts a close-up of some of the entrance wounds on Ms. Connors' left arm, approximately where I'm pointing on myself with my hand.
Now, can you also see some filler material there?
There is some white granular material there, and I'm going to refer to my report. At this range of fire, it's difficult to confirm that that is in fact filler material rather than sand or something else.
Okay. Anything else of note about these entry wounds or this photograph?
No.
Okay. Then moving on to the next photograph.
The next photograph depicts pellet entrance wounds of Ms. Connors' left breast.
Other than what we've already discussed about those injuries, is there anything that we can see or glean from this photograph?
No.
Okay. Then the next photograph.
The next photograph is a closer view of those entrance wounds of her left breast.
Anything else of note in this photograph?
No.
Then moving on to the next.
The next photograph depicts Ms. Connors' body lying face down on the autopsy table. Her head is towards the top of the photograph. Her back is to the right side of the photograph. We can see from this photograph that in addition to the entrance wounds that we saw on her left arm and left breast, there are additional entrance wounds continuing around on the left side of her back, approximately where I'm pointing here, as well as on the area that I'm indicating with my hand, almost behind the underarm, if you will, and just shows the degree of spread of pellet entrance wounds.
Okay. Anything else of note here?
No.
And moving on to the next photograph. We've got a closer up view.
It is, and shows those entrance wounds of those same areas that I just indicated in a closer view.
Anything else of note in that photograph?
No.
Then moving on to the next.
The next photograph depicts Ms. Connors lying on the autopsy table, this time face up. To the right side of the photograph, on the medial aspect or inside of the left breast, we can see pellet exit wounds. We can also see some entrance wounds lower on her chest. On her right breast, we can see pellet exit wounds from pellets that have traveled through her body. We also see an exit wound in her left armpit, approximately where I'm pointing on myself. And because her arm is raised up, if we look on the inside of her right arm, we can see where a pellet re-entered her body again, likely the one that exited from her her right armpit. Also in this photograph, we can see the projectile exit wound of her right cheek that we saw in the identification photograph.
Is there anything else of note in that photograph?
No.
Then moving on to the next.
The next photograph depicts pellets that were recovered from Ms. Connors' body.
And the next.
The next photograph depicts a buckshot pellet that I recovered from her right arm. That was associated with that re-entrance that we just saw in a previous photograph.
Anything else about that one?
No.
In the next photograph?
The next photograph is a photograph of the left side of Ms. Connors' hip. I mentioned earlier that she had an injury that was consistent with a shot cup impact, from the cup falling away from the pellets but still striking the body. So that is the dark area that's just above the white label in this photograph.
And is the next photograph a closer image of that?
Yes, it is.
Anything else of note about that injury?
No.
And moving on to the next group, the next photo.
The next photograph shows the projectile entrance wound on the back of Ms. Connors' head. This is the right occipital scalp. This has classic appearance of an entrance wound. It does not have any soot or stippling. It does not have characteristics to definitively identify it as from a handgun or a shotgun, other than lacking any of the other features that I might expect to see with a shotgun.
Is the next photograph a closer image of that?
Yes, it is, after I have shaved the hair around that wound, as I did in the previous photograph.
Is there anything else about this entry wound in these photographs that you wanted to discuss?
No.
Okay. So moving on to the next.
The next photograph depicts the projectile exit wound of the right cheek of Ms. Connors that's associated with the entrance that we just saw in the previous photograph.
And the next photograph, is that a closer up image of that exit wound?
Yes, it is.
Now, just as we've discussed for the other individuals, is there any other cause of death other than these shotgun and or handgun injuries that she suffered?
No.
Were you able to determine, in your opinion, a manner and cause of death?
Yes, the manner of death was homicide, and the cause of death was multiple shotgun wounds.
Is there anything else about any of these three autopsies that we have not discussed that you think is important for the court to know, or that would clarify any of your testimony?
No.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Questions for the defense, Mr. Elmore?
No, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Please step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, call another witness and go for a little while before we take a break.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state would call Dr. Yell.
Good morning, Dr. Gill. Good morning. Place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right. Face Madam Clerk.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you give the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I swear.
Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir. Once you're up there and comfortable, can you please introduce yourself to the court and spell your name for the court reporter, please?
Yes, sir. My name is Dr. Paul Yell. First name is Paul. Last name is Yell.
And have you been in the courtroom while Dr. Nelson was testifying?
Yes, sir, I was.
Okay, so we're gonna hopefully go through the same type of routine, but before we start in, can you tell the court just a little bit about your background, your education, and your licensure?
Yes, sir. So I am a physician, specifically a forensic pathologist. So the training that I took to get there included a bachelor's degree from Baylor University in Texas. I then went to medical school in Houston, Texas, now what's called McGovern Medical School. I got my MD there. I then went on to pathology residency training. So that's a 4-year program where I became certified in anatomical and clinical pathology. And then I did 2 fellowships, subspecialty training fellowships. So one of those is in neuropathology, so study of brain diseases in particular. That was a 2-year fellowship. And then one in forensic pathology, which is a 1-year fellowship. And so in total, I have 4 board certifications related to pathology.
And how are you currently employed?
So I'm currently an associate chief medical examiner at the North Carolina office of the chief medical examiner.
And how long have you been doing that?
For 5 years almost.
Okay. And have you been tendered as an expert and testified in court before?
Yes, sir, I have.
Approximately how many times?
Approximately 16 times.
Your Honor, would move to tender Dr. Yell as an expert. in the
Any
field.
objection?
No objection.
His testimony will be received as proffered.
Dr. Yell, did you have, how many autopsies did you perform as it is related to this case?
2 autopsies related to this case, sir.
And you created reports related to that?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And that also includes photographs as well, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If I could approach, Your Honor.
Yes.
Dr. Yell, I'm handing you what we've been marked and has been introduced as State's Exhibit A, that 8. I'm sorry, 8. And ask you to take a look at, if you could go to tab D.
Yes, sir.
And take a second to get there.
All right. Yes, sir.
And did you have an occasion to perform an autopsy of Gabriel Torres?
Yes, sir, I did.
Before we get into some of your findings, can you just tell us how old Mr. Torres was? Were you able to determine that?
Yes, sir. He was listed as 29 years old.
And in your autopsy of Officer Torres or Mr. Torres, what can you tell us just generally overall what types of injuries you noticed and anything about performing this autopsy that was complex or unique?
Yes, sir. So in general, the types of injuries that Mr. Torres had were shotgun injuries. He had multiple clusters of wounds that seemed consistent with shotgun type wounding pattern. And there was also evidence of what we might call an intermediary target, a barrier between the shotgun and the person who was shot.
Okay. And overall, how many, and we talked about these aren't in any specific order, but how many different wounds did you either note or kind of group together?
Yes, sir. So there are three main clusters of shotgun defects, so, entrances of the skin. And there's also another separate wound on the left palm, the back of the left palm about here. So in total, some of these appear complex, and what I mean by that is they seem to be more than one pellet entering in the same spot. And that's just because these inches are not perfectly round. They have sort of an irregular and enlarged shape to them, so it's suggestive to me that there's multiple. But considering those together, there's at least 19 defects here, and I would, like I say, venture that there were more because of these complex wounds that we're talking about.
Okay. Well, how about you just go through, and keeping in mind that these are in no particular order, but the first wound or wound cluster that you described, can you walk us through that? Talk to us about that.
Yes, sir, I can. So the first cluster that I describe is on the left upper chest, and so I'm kind of pointing to this area on myself right now. That cluster has 10 defects in it, so there was 10 entrance wounds. It also has evidence of an intermediate range, which we heard Dr. Nelson talking about some. And what I mean by that is that there are the tiny abrasions related to stippling, and there's also a shot cup abrasion there. There are additionally some more irregular abrasions that we call pseudo-stippling. So pseudo-stippling is a concept where we were talking before about more typical stippling is caused by burning or partially burned gunpowder particles that are striking the skin. In the case of a shot shell that has this filler material we discussed, this white sort of plastic particle stuff, that also causes stippling. Pseudo-stippling is caused when a projectile, so shotgun pellets would be an example, passes through something and shatters it and then drives some of the pieces of what it's going through to hit the skin. So that's pseudo-stippling. In this case, we know from the description of the scene that he was likely shot through a windshield, and so there's glass involved as well. And I found pieces of glass on his skin in various places as well, so that all coheres together with that.
Okay. And are you able to determine kind of a path or directionality of those wounds?
Yes, sir. So in addition to the entrance cluster that I just described, there's also some exits that, again, based on the path of destruction through the body and the general, direction of those injuries, I'm able to tell that the exits on the left upper back, so that would be here, I'm just showing on myself, as well as one in the left armpit, seem to be associated with this wound. So from that, I can tell that the trajectory was mainly backward, in other words, coming from the front to the back, and a little bit to the left, so kind of back this direction.
And what, if any, can you describe the injuries, the physical injuries that were associated with those wounds?
Yes, sir. So multiple injuries were associated, including damage to several of the ribs on the left side, both the upper and lower lobes of the left lung, as well as the scapula at the back here, some of the muscles in the armpit, and otherwise just generally musculature in the back.
And moving on to the next wound that you described, or
Yes, sir.
cluster, can you describe that for us, please?
Yes, sir. The next cluster is in the right neck, so I'm pointing to roughly where this would be on myself. That area has 4 defects. One of them is one of the ones I was discussing that seemed complex. So it has an irregular contour. It's larger than the other defects. So I suspect there's multiple pellets that are entering in roughly the same area and causing a more irregular entrance. This one also has evidence of an intermediate range, so stippling. It has a shot cup abrasion nearby it, and these pellets are just irregularly distributed as well. They're not, as Dr. Nelson had mentioned, in a close range of fire, you'd expect the pellets to all stay together and form mostly a single defect, right? And so it's more difficult in this case because of the barrier in between, right? The barrier sort of causes these pellets to behave in a less predictable way and to scatter more than you would expect based on how far the muzzle is from the skin.
Okay. And that barrier meaning, in this case, potential glass, windshield, something like that?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And the path of this wound?
Yes, sir. So the expected exit for this one is also on the left upper back. So there's really only one that I am able to fairly confidently associate with this right neck, but it seems again like it may be multiple pellets exiting through roughly the same defect, the same area. So again, it's on the left upper back. There are, however, multiple pellets that are within the body that I think are associated with this wound. So the general direction of it is backward and leftward and a little bit downward, so kind of coming in this direction.
And again, some of that, the complexity there is, I think Dr. Nelson described some overlap, or the idea of overlapping wounds. Was that present on these particular?
Yes, sir. That's absolutely correct. Particularly this wound and the next wound that I will describe, those two have overlapping and intersecting wound tracks, right? So there's sort of a muddle of damage from them that's hard to definitely associate with one or the other.
What injuries were you able to associate with this particular cluster of wounds?
Yes, sir. So multiple muscles in the neck were damaged. One of the largest ones in the neck is the sternocleidomastoid muscle on the front.
Sorry, the largest one in the neck.
Yes. So the largest muscle in the neck, one of the largest muscles in the neck, is called the sternocleidomastoid muscle. So that was damaged, as well as the right collarbone, right clavicle, the right side of the trachea, which is the windpipe running through the middle of the neck here. Several vertebral bodies. Dr. Nelson had mentioned the spinal column has different divisions of it. So T1 and T2 were the ones that were injured in this case. So those are the first and second thoracic vertebrae, so in the chest part. Also, there was damage to the spinal cord in that same area, that upper thoracic area of the spinal column. Several of the ribs were damaged. There was also damage to some of the muscles along the spine, and then just damage to the musculature of the back. Associated with this were several areas of hemorrhage. So there was some bleeding around the spinal cord itself. There was a left-sided focus of bleeding, which we call hemothorax, is basically surrounding the lung on the left side. And there was also hemorrhage in the lung tissue itself. It's indicative of someone who is trying to breathe and inhaling blood. So we call it hemoaspiration.
Thank you. Moving on to the third cluster that you described, can you tell us about that?
Yes, sir. So the third cluster, third of my description, right, as Dr. Nelson rightly said, we're not able to say the order, but the third in my order of description is a cluster on the right shoulder. So this has, again, 4 defects, but several of them look to be compounds to me, multiple pellets entering the same irregular defect. This was also intermediate range. There was stippling and a shot cup. In this case, it wasn't just an abrasion from the shot cup. The shot cup itself, the plastic of it, was actually embedded in one of the wounds at the right shoulder. And there was also pseudostippling associated with this, including nearby on the right arm and forearm.
And again, the path, was that similar to the previous paths that you've described?
Yes, sir. This one seemed to be more leftward directed. Some pellets possibly going a little upward, and maybe even some frontward. There was one exit with this one on the right upper chest, which again, I was able to actually probe, with sort of a tool to stretch across between an entrance and an exit, basically. So that one I'm confident is coming from this wound cluster. And then there was multiple recovered pellets with this one as well.
And what injuries were you able to associate with this wound?
Yes, sir. So injuries associated with this wound included damage to the head of the humerus on the right. So the humerus, again, is the long bone in the upper arm on the right, and the head is where it is hooking into the shoulder, basically. So damage to the head of the humerus. There was also damage to the right clavicle, the right sternum, which is the breastbone in the middle of your chest. Both the upper and lower lobes of the right lung. Several injuries to the aorta, which is the largest blood vessel in your body that comes out the top of the heart. There was also just general injury to the right chest musculature. And otherwise, bleeding associated with this, there was a right-sided hemothorax, which is blood surrounding the right lung. And there was also blood surrounding the heart related to those aorta injuries we mentioned. So collection of blood around the heart.
I think you mentioned you were able to retain the shot cup from this particular injury.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
To the next wound that you described, can you talk to us about that?
Yes, sir. I mentioned, too, that there was a single isolated wound on the back of the left palm, so about here. This one was a penetrating wound, and as Dr. Nelson had mentioned, penetrating meaning that it enters and does not exit, versus the perforating wound does both enter and exit. So this wound is on the back left palm. It does also have evidence of stippling around it, so abrasions related to some of that filler or unburned gunpowder particles. And there's an abrasion nearby it that looks to me like it might be basically a graze abrasion of the shot cut passing by and striking the skin and continuing on. This one, like I mentioned, did have one pellet associated with it, which was also in the hand.
And that was recovered.
Yes, sir.
And was there any trajectory or path that you were able to determine from in this injury?
Yes, sir. So it's important to understand when we're talking about the way we describe trajectories, that it's based on the anatomical position. So when I'm saying frontward in this case, that's meaning the way the hand is normally arranged. If I may stand up and kind of demonstrate the position. So this is what we call anatomical position, right? So the palms are facing forward here. So when I say frontward, I'm saying in this position, the entrance is back here and the pellet is towards the palm.
And that's what you found in this particular injury?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Were there any other groups or wounds that you noted while performing this autopsy?
There were a few other scattered injuries that I believe are probably related to the pseudostippling that we're talking about. In other words, shards of glass that were propelled by something firing through them. So these were on the right side of the torso. There were some on the right knee, and some of these actually contained glass in them.
And anything else? Any other wounds that you noted?
There were a few small abrasions, too, of the left elbow and the right knee, which was not specific, nothing that I could definitely say those were from.
Now, before we move into the photographs, is there anything else about these wounds or wound clusters that I haven't asked about that you found of note?
No, sir, I don't believe so.
So I'll ask you to turn to the first of the photographs there in, I guess we're still in tab D of State's Exhibit 8.
Yes, sir.
And I think we've heard Dr. Nelson testify about identifying a photograph. Is that what we've got here?
Yes, sir. This is an identifying photograph.
And what can you describe to the court what is of note in this first photograph?
Yes, sir. So in this photograph, again, the focus on this is just to show his face to document his identity. But otherwise, in it, we can see a large amount of red stippling. A lot of it is irregular. So what I mean by that is different sizes, different shapes. So that tells me some of this is pseudo-stippling, likely. Regular stippling is usually very regular in size. So there's considerable amount of stippling and pseudo-stippling around his face, which I believe is mostly associated with that right neck cluster. We can also see some of those wounds on the right neck and stippling around them, as well as some of the left upper chest cluster we discussed, and then the one exit wound that's on the right upper chest.
We move to the next photograph. What is of note in this photograph?
Yes, sir. So in this photograph, this is an overall photograph of Mr. Torres' torso and head. So his head's towards the top. We can see a much better overall view of the cluster of injuries on the left chest. We can also see a shot cup abrasion, which is sort of orange and dried off towards his left shoulder. There's another likely shot cup abrasion on his right chest, which is more dark red. So again, different ways that wounds dry can kind of cause different colors.
And that would be kind of the largest of the dark areas there on the right chest.
Yes, sir, that's correct. We can also see a better view of the injuries on his right neck, including the surrounding stippling and pseudo-stippling. And again, we can see the exit wound near his right clavicle. And if we look closely on his right shoulder, you can see some of that right shoulder entrance cluster. Also, I notice at the bottom of this photograph towards our right, his left, you can see the entrance injury to his left hand, as well as that shot cup abrasion I mentioned.
Thank you. Moving on to the next photograph. What is this a photograph of?
Yes, sir. So this is a close-up photograph of the left upper chest cluster that we discussed. This is again showing these multiple entrances of what seem to be buckshot shotgun pellets, as well as the shot cup abrasion, which is towards his left shoulder, as well as surrounding stippling, pseudo-stippling.
Moving on to the next photograph. What is this?
So this is another angle of that same cluster, which is just showing his arm stretched out more, so we can also see some of the pseudo-stippling that is stretching onto his left arm.
And is the shot cup abrasion that you've mentioned, is that also depicted there?
It is, yes. That's sort of centered in this photograph.
Moving on to the next photograph. This appears to be a photograph of his back.
Yes, sir, that's correct. So he is face down in this photograph. His head's towards the top. You can see his face is turned toward his left. What we're looking at here is one of the clusters of exit wounds on his left upper back, as well as one you can see more towards the middle of his upper back. That's the exit that I was describing that's associated with this right. Actually, I apologize. I got that backwards. It's associated with the right neck entrance. So it's a compound exit at sort of the left side to the midline of the back. And then we've also got our 5 exits that are more lateral on the left upper back.
Turning to the next photograph, we're still looking at Mr. Torres from the back.
The one I'm looking at has his right neck.
Yes.
Maybe I'm off. Okay, so this is a close-up of the right neck cluster. So we can see those 4 wide gaping wounds I discussed that, we're mentioning that some of these appear to be, again, compound, likely multiple pellets entering through basically the same defects. There's also very dense stippling around it, some of which looks dried. It sort of takes on an orange cast to it. And we can also see some abrasions around it.
Can you do me a favor and look on the back of that photograph and tell me what number is written there?
That is 7306.
Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure we're looking at the same.
Yes, sir.
Same photograph. Anything else of note on that photograph?
No, sir, nothing else on that photograph.
Turning to the next photograph, which is 7321.
Yes, sir, that's correct. So this is another angle on the right side of his neck, which is also including the right side of his face. This angle is intended to just show sort of the continuity of the stippling and pseudo-stippling from this right neck wound going up onto his face. But otherwise it's showing the same defects. We can also see some of the left upper chest cluster at the bottom of the photo.
Okay. Thank you. Turning to the next photograph.
Yes, sir. So this is the shot cup abrasion I was mentioning that is on the right upper chest. This is a close-up of it, so there's really nothing identifying you can orient yourself with here. But we can tell from that overall that we saw previously that this is that abrasion on the right upper chest. This is darkened, reddish black and dried, but consistent with what I would expect from a shot cup abrasion.
And moving to the next photograph.
Yes, sir. So this is a view of the right shoulder area, includes some of the right neck as well. This is showing the exit near the right clavicle, as well as some other scattered abrasions nearby. You can also see part of the right shoulder entrance cluster on this one.
And still, we're still seeing the continuation of that stippling.
Yes, sir, correct.
Thank you. Move to the next photograph.
Yes, sir. This is looking specifically at that right shoulder entrance. So we're looking from the side of the right shoulder. His head's towards the top. You can see 4 entrance defects, which are, again, fairly irregularly shaped. One of them contains the white plastic shot cup we've been describing. So it actually was embedded in one of the wounds here. You can also see a big swath of abrasion around that entrance. You can imagine that shot cup passing by and sort of causing abrasion as it was going into the hole there.
Moving on to the next photograph. Is this one of the hand injuries?
Yes, sir, this is. This is looking at the back of his left palm. And so this is showing the entrance that I had described. There it's a single pellet entrance, appears to be. And just above it, sort of towards this area of his hand, is the red-purple abrasion we discussed, which again looks like maybe a shot cup that passed by and damaged the hand. There's also stippling nearby it.
And those are the irregular dots kind of towards the wrist area.
Yes, sir, correct.
Thank you. Moving to the next photograph.
Yes, sir. This, I believe, is near his right knee. This is showing some of these irregular abrasions I mentioned that are likely from pseudo-stippling, from glass and things like that. I believe some of these actually had glass in them.
Okay. And I believe the final picture, what is depicted there?
Yes, sir. So this is a view of Mr. Torres' right arm. So his forearm, his upper arm, as well as his right flank. And so we can see on his forearm and upper arm a lot of very irregular abrasions, which again, mixture of stippling and pseudo-stippling. And then we can see 2 somewhat larger abrasions on his right flank, which again, I think is probably glass that was sort of driven to him.
Thank you, Dr. Yell. Besides the injuries that you've described and noted in your autopsy, did you note anything or discover anything besides these injuries that could have been fatal to Mr. Torres?
No, sir, nothing.
Okay. Were you able to form an opinion as to the cause and manner of death in this case?
Yes, sir, I did.
What was that?
Was multiple shotgun wounds as the cause of death, and the manner is homicide.
Thank you. Is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you think the court should know about this particular autopsy?
No, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Yell.
We'll take a 15-minute recess at this time, and we'll resume at 10 minutes until 12.
Superior Court being recessed 15 minutes.
questions for this witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Dr. Yell, the other autopsy that you performed related to this case was of James Thompson. Is that right?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
And how old was Mr. Thompson at the time of your autopsy?
He was listed as 16 years old.
Now, was this autopsy similar to or much different from the other ones that we've heard about today?
Very different from the others we've heard described.
Okay, and can you tell us what made it so?
Yes, sir. So Mr. Thompson did not have any shotgun wound injuries to him. He did instead have a gunshot wound which appeared more consistent with a handgun wound to me, to his head, as well as multiple sharp force injuries, mainly stab injuries to the neck.
And if we could, let's just, and again, not, well, between those two that you've just described, the gunshot wound and the multiple stab injuries,
Mm-hmm.
would be fair to say that the gunshot wound kind of analysis or so is a simpler related to those stab wounds?
Yes, sir. I would say that.
Okay, well, let's start with the gunshot wound, which is what you started with. But again, not an indication of which order they came in. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So starting with the gunshot wound, tell us what you noted about that.
Yes, sir. So the entrance of this gunshot wound is on the left back of the scalp. So if I can sort of demonstrate on myself, it would be sort of back about here. This entrance is a single entrance. You know, there's no cluster of shotgun pellets associated with this. There also isn't any sign of range on it. So we've been talking a lot about soot with Dr. Nelson's cases and stippling, pseudo-stippling with my cases. None of that is present on this one. It's just the gunshot wound without any soot or stippling or searing or any of those sorts of things that would tell us how close it was. So we use the term indeterminate range for that, which often means at a greater distance than about 3 feet for a handgun, right? But we say indeterminate because there's always the possibility that there's something in the way that's blocking some of this residue from getting on the skin. So we prefer the indeterminate description. There is no exit associated with this wound, so I did recover a projectile from inside the head related to this wound.
With regards to some of the things that could be in between, blocking, as you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
some of that, we've talked about windshields or glass or physical objects. Could
Mm-hmm.
hair also affect that?
Hair can affect that, and particularly someone that has darker colored hair, it can be difficult to see if there is, for example, soot that's sort of trapped in the hair. So that's something to consider, particularly denser, thicker, longer hair.
Okay. And what was the path of this wound, if you know?
Yes, sir. So the path, again, begins at the left back of the head, and goes through the skull, and then it passes through the brain, and so it's coming towards basically the right forehead. So it passes through a bunch of brain. It actually strikes the skull at this right forehead and leaves a divot and bounces back into the brain. We call that a ricochet, internal ricochet. And so the bullet passes backward and ends up at sort of the back right part of the brain near the temple over here.
And what type of injuries or damage did that cause?
Yes, sir. So it damaged several very important parts of the brain, particularly the thalamus is one area of mention. It's sort of a control center, routing center in the middle of the brain that handles a lot of switching, if you will, of signals. In there, it's important in consciousness too. And it also caused significant bleeding in the scalp. It caused bleeding on the surface of the brain, sort of spreading along the surface of the brain, and multiple fractures of the skull, particularly around this ricochet point at the right forehead.
Anything else of note about that particular injury?
I could mention that the projectile that I was able to recover from the brain, again, does not look like a buckshot pellet, as we've seen in many of these other cases. It instead looked more consistent with what I typically see in a handgun bullet.
All right, and now moving to the your analysis of the stab wounds that you've described. Can you tell us a little bit about, just in generally, I think you mentioned there are stab wounds and incised wounds. What is the difference?
Yes, sir. So stab and incised wounds both fall under the umbrella of what we call sharp force injuries. And so if I could take even a further step back, it's distinguished from blunt force injuries, right? So blunt force injuries have, for example, lacerations. Lacerations would be a tear of the skin that's caused by an impact. That is usually a ragged, irregular kind of tear in the skin, versus sharp force injuries are caused by a sharp object that is causing a more straight-edged injury that is not a tear, it's actually being separated by the force of this sharp edge, right? So that's what we're talking about. Between stab and incised wounds, those are sort of the two major divisions of sharp force injuries. Stab wounds are wounds that are deeper than they are long on the surface of the skin, so the entrance length versus the depth of how far it's penetrating. Incised wounds are longer on the surface than they are deep, so they're more shallow. That's the main difference.
Okay. So in dealing with or documenting these wounds, first of all, were you able to determine an approximate number of wounds overall of this type?
Yes, sir. And it is certainly an estimate in this case because many of these injuries are complex, as we've been describing, things that are overlapping or compound, where it seems like there may be multiple sort of penetration to injuries in the same spot. Because of that, it's difficult to be sure of how many we're talking about here. But the total I was able to come up with is 57 as an estimate.
And can you tell the court how you, excuse me, how you went about organizing your your documentation of those 57 wounds?
Yes, sir. As Dr. Nelson had described, this is essentially arbitrary. We're trying to break things down in a way that makes it easier to digest and to document. So I'm not necessarily saying that, the wounds in a cluster all happened at the same time versus other wounds in other clusters or things like that. But I broke this up into 4 different clusters that we're going to talk about. So one is on the right anterior neck, so sort of this part of the neck over here that I'm pointing to. Another cluster is on the midline of the neck, so along the front midline and over onto the left side of the neck. There's another that's on the side of the neck, on the left side. And then a last cluster that is at the back left of the neck. So those are sort of the 4 regions that I divided it into.
Okay. And again, in no particular order, can you tell us about to start with? How about we start with the right neck cluster, or
yes,
is there a better place for us to start?
No, that's just fine by me. So the right neck cluster is 14 stab wounds. All of these are fairly small in length, and they're superficial. In other words, they don't go very deep into the underlying skin or soft tissue. They don't really damage many structures underneath. So these are sort of just very light pokes, essentially, on the right side of the neck, 14 of them in a group.
Okay. What about, so moving on to the next cluster.
Yes, sir. So the next cluster is, as we talk about, the midline and to the left of the front of the neck. So this cluster has 16 stab wounds and 6 incised wounds in it. So we're talking about a total of 22 wounds in this cluster. Many of these are deeper. The incised wounds, as we mentioned, are ones that are longer than they are deep. So those just are mostly damaging the skin and soft tissue, right? A lot of those tended to be sort of up under the chin here. The deeper ones were more down on the neck and to the left here. Those penetrated fairly deep. I believe some of them were 2 inches or more deep, and damaged a whole lot of structures in the neck that are important. So multiple muscles were damaged in the neck. The left carotid, which is the major, largest artery in your neck, as well as the left jugular vein, which is the major vein bringing blood from your brain and face back down. The back of the throat essentially was damaged, as well as the larynx, the voice box right here was damaged. The vocal cords and the thyroid cartilage is sort of a part of the larynx as well. And then we had talked before about the spinal column, the different divisions of it. The C3 vertebral body is part of that spinal column in the neck. There was a small bit of damage to that C3 where something sharp had basically caused a divot in that spinal column. And associated with this too was some drainage of blood again down into the lungs, where we see evidence of someone inhaling blood into the lungs that's sort of draining down the back of the throat.
Okay. And so I believe you've is the term for that aspiration?
Yes, sir. Hemoaspiration.
And does that indicate anything to you about the status of this person when those injuries are being inflicted?
Yes, sir. That does indicate to me that he was at least still breathing at the time when these were inflicted, although he may not have been conscious, right?
And so that cluster, as you've described, that we just talked about, was kind of the midline left neck cluster. What was another cluster that you haven't described yet?
Yes, sir. So the next one in my listing is on the side of the left neck, so left lateral neck, is another way to say that. This has 10 stab wounds over on this side of the neck, and these essentially are, again, sort of a muddle with the cluster I just described. These are also fairly deep. They injure some of the same structures, but they basically cause a big mess on the left side of the neck.
And was there another, a final, I think you said 4, was there a final cluster that you described in your autopsy?
Yes, sir, there is. So that is the left back of the neck, the posterolateral left neck. That's a cluster of 11 sharp force injuries. 8 of those are stab wounds and 3 of those are incised wounds. And these don't seem to go as far forward to damage the front of the neck structures that we were just talking about. These mostly damage muscle at the back left of the neck.
And did you note any blunt traumas while you were performing this autopsy?
I did, yes. There are bruises of the right hip and the left wrist, and there is a scrape above the right knee, but these are non-specific injuries that could be from anything, could be from doing something else earlier that day.
Before we move on to discussing any photographs in this, anything else of note about those wounds or wound clusters that you'd like the court to know?
No, sir, I don't think so.
So I'll ask you to flip forward in State's Exhibit 8 to that first identifying photograph of James Thompson.
Yes, sir.
And besides, what we've talked about before, the identification purposes, are any of the wounds visible on this first photograph?
Yes, sir. There are some wounds visible here, particularly on the left side of the neck. You can see some of the stab wounds, some on the chin as well.
So I'll move you to the next photograph. What is that a photograph of?
Yes, sir. This is a photograph of the left back of the head where we discussed there's an entrance gunshot wound there. This is a photograph after I have shaved some of the hair away to make it easier to see the characteristics of that wound.
And was the hair that James Thompson had kind of that dark, thicker hair that you've described?
It is dark and fairly dense, yes, sir.
So if you could, I'll ask you to flip to the next photograph, and can you tell the court what we're looking at here?
Yes, sir. So this is looking at the right side of his neck, particularly showing that cluster of 14 shallow stab wounds that I had discussed in that area.
And those were all, I believe, you superficial. Is that the word you used?
Yes, sir.
Meaning they don't penetrate too deeply.
Yes, sir. Correct.
What else? What other injuries, if any, do we see in this photograph?
We can see the edge of a few incised wounds, one of which stretches across the midline of the neck. I included it with the midline cluster that's next, but you can see it in this photo as well.
That's the longer kind of side to side.
Yes, sir. Correct.
Okay. I ask you to flip to the next photograph. What is depicted there, and can you kind of orient us to Mr. Thompson's kind of his orientation?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So we're looking at the front of the neck, essentially. And so we have his chin lifted up. So the top of his head is toward the top of the photograph. His left is on the right of the photograph. And so this is focusing on showing the injuries that we're discussing in that left midline cluster. And you can also see that right cluster we'd already discussed here. But it's showing basically the locations of all those wounds in that left to midline cluster.
And the top of that photograph, is that another incised wound?
Yes, sir. It is. The one that's directly on his chin is an incised wound.
Anything of note? Anything else of note about this photograph?
No, sir.
I'll ask you to turn to the next photograph.
Mm-hmm.
And can you describe what is depicted there?
Yes, sir. So this photograph is looking at the left side of his neck. So his head is turned away. We can see the top of his head toward the top of the photograph. And this particularly is showing, because of the way neck tension works as you turn your head away, these are very gaping in this photograph. But you get a sense of how there's multiple overlying stab wounds that are sort of in the same defect here.
And this being, I guess, the third of the four clusters that you described.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
I'll ask you to turn to the next. Take a second to look at the next photograph. I believe you mentioned some blunt force traumas. Could that be what's depicted there?
Yes, sir. I think it is. This is a close-in shot, so I'm not exactly sure of the location on this one, but it does look like a small abrasion.
Okay. And would that be, I'll ask you to turn to the next photograph, would that be the same type of description?
Yes, sir.
And then finally, the last photograph, again, is that another blunt force?
It is. This is an abrasion above the right knee.
In performing your autopsy of James Thompson, did you discover or note anything else that could have contributed to his death in this case, besides the injuries that you?
Besides the injuries, no, sir, nothing.
Were you able to form an opinion as to the cause and manner of his death?
Yes, sir.
And what was that?
The cause is gunshot wound of head and multiple sharp force injuries in the neck, and the manner is homicide.
Is there anything else about this autopsy that I haven't asked about that is of note that you would like to make the court aware of?
No, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Yo.
Mr. Elmore, questions for this witness?
No, thank you.
Thank you, sir. You may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Further evidence for the state?
Yes, Your Honor. The state calls Casey Clark.
afternoon, sir. Good afternoon. Place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right, face Madam Clerk.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you give the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Once you're comfortable, please just introduce yourself to the judge, tell him your name, and spell it for the court reporter.
Good afternoon, Judge. My name is Casey Clark, Casey Clark.
Mr. Clark, how are you currently employed?
I am a realtor in Michigan.
Okay. In 2022, how were you employed?
I was a police officer with the City of Raleigh.
And how long had you been with the City of Raleigh?
At that point, it was a little over 10 years.
And what was your role with the City of Raleigh Police Department at that time?
I was on the Selective Enforcement Unit.
What is the Selective Enforcement Unit?
That is the city's version of SWAT.
And can you describe for us how you go about getting on that unit, and if you have specialized training or things like that?
Yes, sir. You have to have at least 6 years. You have to be you have to be a master officer, so 4 years of experience to try out. During the tryout, there's very physical, demanding. There's shooting involved. You have to be accurate. You have a oral interview with the command staff and the supervisors of the Selective Enforcement Unit. And then you have to be selected. You have a psych eval, and that's it.
Okay. So you got to go through a lot to get on that.
Yes, sir.
And is that something that you wanted to do your career?
Yes, sir. That was my entire intent, was to become a member of the Selective Enforcement Unit.
And you were able to accomplish that?
Yes, sir.
Before you did that, you were a line officer, anything else in the police department?
I was on a district-wide specialized unit prior to that line, then the specialized unit for the Southwest District, where we were we targeted gang members, drug dealers, car theft, a lot of investigative work, and dealing with community-specific problems.
When did you stop being a police officer?
I was no longer employed by the Raleigh Police Department June 1st of 2024.
And what was the reason for your separation of employment?
I was shot in the knee and unable to return.
So medically you were unable to perform that?
Yes, sir.
As a part of your employment with the SEU or the Selective Enforcement Unit with the Raleigh Police Department, did you get involved in the investigation of the spree shooting or mass shooting reports that were happening in the Hedingham neighborhood on October the 13th of 2022?
Yes, sir.
What was your role in that October investigation?
I had worked that morning, worked the entire shift, then was off. Was at a doctor's appointment, and then started getting the notifications of this. Spoke with a detective, former member of the SEU, and then I responded in.
So you had already worked a shift?
Yes, sir.
You were off and gone to a doctor's appointment, but you decided to go back in?
Yes, sir.
And why did you decide to go back in and get involved in this?
Because this was an all hands on deck. This is an active shooter that was not located. Last I had heard, he was running through the woods with a long gun and camo. That is a clear SEU response.
And so when you re-engaged with your employment, you went back to work
Yes,
that
sir.
day. Where did you go? What did you do upon first getting involved?
I went home. I changed back out. I waited for my wife to get home. She was picking up the kid. Said goodbye, drove in. Earlier that day, we had executed a search warrant for a child sex predator. I think it was about 2 miles away from the scene. So speaking with other members of my team that was off, that was returning in as well, we made the logical conclusion that that seemed like the direction he was heading. So we wanted to go to that location, get ready, and kind of be that blocking force. We knew there was already Team 2 was in, we knew they were responding. They were going to be tracking him from where they last saw him. We were going to try to guess to jump the track and be that stopping force for when he would run into us.
So there was another SEU team that was already involved, is that right?
Correct.
And you and your group met back up at this place that you were familiar with,
Yes, sir.
and it was kind of ahead of where you thought the person may be going?
Correct. That seemed to be the direction the track was taking.
Okay. And so when you did that, did you meet up with your other teammates there?
I did, yes, sir.
Once you guys got together and got situated, what was the next thing that you all went about doing?
We split up into two groups. There was only, I think, maybe 5 or 6 of us that had made it there at that point. We split into two groups, and we kind of divided in certain areas, and were waiting as a perimeter unit until there was further to direct our position.
At some point, was there somewhere for you to go?
Yes. Over the radio, we heard that a passerby had stopped, spoken with, I believe, a trooper, who relayed that she saw a young white male in camo carrying a long gun and backpack had just crossed the road close to where we were. So we responded there, waited for K-9, and Wake County K-9 arrived, and we began a track.
So a witness had seen somebody cross a road. Did they tell you a direction where that person had gone, or were you informed of a direction where that person had gone?
I was informed they crossed the road. I did not have a specific direction other than it was crossed the road and into these woods.
Okay, so another wooded area.
Correct.
Can you describe that wooded area, how dense it was, what the terrain was kind of like?
It was pretty dense. It was fall time, so there was leaves on the ground. It was just a 2-lane road, woods on either side. You can't see very far into them. You had to go up a little hill to begin, and hilly and a lot of woods, but I didn't see a house.
Okay. And did you go into those woods?
I did.
And you said there was a K-9 that was tracking?
Correct.
Did the group of you travel with that K-9?
Yes, sir.
And tell us what happened with the K-9 track, if you can.
We followed along with the K-9. There were, I think, several, maybe 4 or 5 SEU officers that were on this specific track, and a few deputies. I think Highway Patrol was with us as well. We tracked for a long time. We encountered a hunting blind. Myself and a couple SEU guys cleared that.
When you say clear, what do you mean?
We searched it, made sure that he was not holed up in this hunting blind. We then continued on with the track. There was a helicopter overhead, so it made it very difficult to hear. And we continued to the track until we got to a fence line that had a house in the distance and then 2 outbuildings.
Now, how are you dressed? Are you in a uniform at this time?
I was in a uniform with my plate carrier, helmet, night vision, and rifle.
When you say plate carrier, is that like armor?
That's an exterior armor that's ballistic rated for rifle rounds.
Is it daylight at this time?
It's getting dusk.
So when you get to this fence, what's the kind of calculus that you do and what decisions do you make?
We stop momentarily there, verify to see whether or not the dog is going to go clear these outbuildings or we are going to. The decision was made that we would push up. SEU would clear the buildings. Myself, Officer Garner, and Sergeant Smithy cleared the initial building, pushed through, cleared the building. I was covering long to the right while they were clearing to the right or to the left. You can see most of the other building that's kind of staggered, where one ends, the next one begins, but across a 30-yard or so little alley. You can see most of that, but there was still a garage door that was down, and then the back corner there that we could not see.
Okay,
that we were going to have to clear.
So let me ask you this. So you guys jumped that fence, and there's a building that's closest to you?
Correct.
And that's the building that you kind of cleared?
Correct. We see the back side of that, so we had to go around, clear that way. And then there was a second building staggered off to a little further away.
So there's a grassy area in between,
Yes.
and then another building staggered that would be across from you.
Correct.
Okay. And so you clear this building to the left, And you're standing in the middle area?
Standing closer to the building we just cleared, but we stopped at the edge of that, and I'm facing that direction. That's my zone of coverage at that point.
Why are you doing that?
The two that cleared that building were on the inside, and they were taking care of that. My entire responsibility is making sure that there's nothing out there that would be a threat to us. And I'm imagining long gun camo. I expected that this would be a good spot for him to be holed up and taking aim at us.
You said it was getting dark. Are you able to see clearly?
It's dusk, so you can see, but there was a flashlight that swept across that opening, which made it a little easier to see in there. But it's at that point of losing visibility.
Okay. And while you're standing there providing this cover, what happens next?
I hear a gunshot, and I feel what felt like a train going through my knee. Drops me to the ground.
When that happens, what do you do?
I sit up. I'm looking for the threat. Point my gun in that direction, but I'm looking for the threat. I don't fire because I know that the moment I start firing, I'm not going to be able to see any movement. I'm expecting to be looking for a face since he's in camo.
What about your other teammates? Do they return fire?
They do.
And does anybody help you when you go down?
They do.
What happens?
Officer Martin grabs me from my plate carrier and drags me behind the shed.
When you're back there, what happens?
He applies a tourniquet.
Were you able to see anybody ever?
No, sir.
And when I say that, anybody ever that fired at you?
Correct. I did not see a person nor a flash.
And you say they applied a tourniquet to you?
Yes, sir.
And do you stay at that location behind the shed, or what happens with you?
After the tourniquet is applied, I am then assisted out of the area and driven to the hospital.
And when you get to the hospital, can you tell us what, if anything, happens and what you find out?
They evaluate my knee. They take imaging and make the determination that they're not going to perform surgery at this time, bandage it up, and I am released.
Tell me about what injury you suffered.
I suffered a gunshot pellet to the knee, or to the top of my tibia. Entered in on the side of the knee, hit the tibia, and is lodged there now.
As a result of that injury, tell us what kind of pain or issues that you deal with because of that.
The primary issue that I have is that my knee will give out on me without any warning. Standing, walking, I might just drop. The pain I'm feeling is the constant pain is the feeling of a electricity going across this area where I was shot. It feels similar to like a TENS unit constantly on. And then in addition to that, it will feel like someone's drilling into my bone.
I saw, and I could be wrong, but I saw when you sat down, you kind of grimaced. Was that related to this, or did you bang your leg when you sat down?
This is related to the gunshot.
Okay.
It's something I live with.
It's something you live with. And you said that as a result of this, you no longer got to be a police officer.
Yes, sir.
How did that affect you?
That was hard. That was my entire life's goal, was to be on the SWAT team. That was my dream. I was 3 years in, so just started my career with it. And, it was difficult. That was my family, and that was a lot.
So you've given that up, not voluntarily.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I guess, other than what you've just told us, how has this affected you?
It's affected my family a lot. It's my wife specifically has a lot of trauma from this. Excuse me.
Take time.
She's constantly, instead of the happy-go-lucky woman that I married, where she was able to walk down the street, not stressed, now she evaluates everyone as a threat. she has a lot more fear than she used to. My son's now asking me every time I reach for my leg, is that because you were shot? Now I have to explain. Eventually, I haven't explained to him what happened, but that's something I'm going to have to live with. Of it's going to come up. It's public record. The video of me getting shot is on YouTube.
How old is your son?
He is 4 now. Just walking through woods used to be enjoyable to me. It was pleasant, peaceful. Now I'm evaluating, looking for a threat, looking for the shooter that's in the woods. Makes no sense, but that's what I'm doing.
Okay. Now you talked a little bit about there being a video of this on the internet. Was that because you had it on body-worn camera?
Yes, sir.
And did it capture the events of you getting shot?
It did.
Your Honor, at this time the state would seek to admit State's Exhibit number 9, which is the body-worn camera for Officer Clark.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
It's allowed.
And we would ask to publish it on the screen.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Yes. Carnett?
Yes, Your Honor.
Hold up, Dave. Dave. Ladder up the back.
so K9 is from behind some houses. Just worry about cramping up at that point. Hey, Sergeant. What's up? Don't forget to look up. Slow it down so we can get to you. You're by yourself. Shut up. Jeez. Wake SO K9 is tracking west towards some garages in the house, most likely off of Charcoal Club Drive. I'm far, right. Those lights are on. Oh, fuck! knee.
All right, push, turn it on. You turn it on, right knee.
Right knee. It looks like it's straight that way. It's not tight, it's not tight.
Okay. Hey, pull his main leg up real quick. Do you need anywhere else?
Knee is the only thing I know of.
All right. You two, we're going to start working with him to get the traction out. Pull him a little bit further back. Casey, how are you doing?
I'm nauseous, but I'm good.
You're going to be all right, bro.
I'm good.
Right foot, hold there.
I don't know you're tired enough yet.
360.
Tighten that one up. Put this one on. Above it. Tighten that second again. It does not feel tight at all. Shift my knee, it's fine.
Is the wound below this?
It feels like my kneecap, lower kneecap. It might have been a ricochet because it didn't feel like it was that big.
How's this feel? Okay.
Not as tight as I remember one. Do me a favor, put one more.
Here, we got Mark. Are you reset? Here's what we're going to do. Y'all are going to pull him. While they're taking him, follow me real quick.
Hey, if someone just gets me up to my feet, I can go on one leg. We're just chilling.
You got to turn it on. Put the second on. You need a card? I got one if you need Down. Good? Focus on me.
Good. Yep.
All right. Where were you at? Where were you at?
I was standing about 15 feet at a 45-degree angle from this, and it looked like it was coming directed that way.
Casey, your turn again. The second one.
Yep.
Good.
It feels pretty tight now. The knees could be tighter.
I'm getting set. You're good. Raleigh officer shot. We're going to get the knee back to him. All right. Here, take him. I'm staying. Hey, I'm going to have this phone. Take it off.
Stop. Underneath my arms, my armpit, and stand me up.
Ready?
Yep. Yep.
Reputable.
Down that way so we're not standing. Yep. Can we cut right and get into the woods? Hey, go across, let me use the sets. Go down there. Yep. Go right. Get further away from the guy. We're moving pretty slow.
No, stay with us. You're the only lethal. Hey, stay with us. You're lethal right now. No one else is.
Did you see him in the garage or anything? No. Okay. We're trying to figure that out. I don't want him doubling back on us in the woods. I was laying down covered in the woods. Yeah. I didn't see him. I never saw him. I didn't either, man. Fuck. I just started fucking.
Fuck you. Don't feel like you. You're an actual woman. Not that I know what that is. That way. Cover that way. Yeah. I'm good. I'm good. 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 That way. You might be going towards there. They got it pretty much stopped.
We don't know if he's in the woods or in the building.
It's me. Good. Relax, I got this. Good. I got this. Good. I'm good. Relax. We're good. Don't hit anyone. It's all right. We're good. Merely a flesh wound.
Casey, it wasn't just merely a flesh wound, was it?
No, sir.
Okay. I want to ask you a couple things really quickly after watching that video. I mean, you guys are walking through those woods for about 15 minutes before you get to the fence line. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
At that point in time, do you know where this person is?
Not a clue.
And there were a lot of trees and brush. In your mind, could he have been anywhere out there?
He could have been anywhere. Yes.
And so you guys are following this canine track, but you kind of happen upon this building, and that's where you encountered him.
Correct. We were following the canine track. I knew we were following him. There wasn't a doubt in my mind with the description we got of the track we started, that and the way the canine was pulling was consistent with other tracks I've been on. I knew we were following someone, and the only logical person it would be Austin.
Okay. And you were kind of given instructions when you were being escorted to safety about getting in the wood line. Why were you trying to get over there at that point?
Because I knew the direction I was shot from, and we were walking into the open of where I knew where the bullet had come from. So I was trying to get further away and keeping the building that we had used for cover previously as cover and concealment to get us out of there.
Okay. Now you say now you live in Michigan, right?
Yes, sir.
And you've traveled all this way to be here for this hearing, correct?
Yes, sir.
Is there anything that you would like to tell the judge from your perspective about what you would like to see happen at the end of this hearing?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Judge.
Yes.
I wanted to point out that this is what a 15-year-old could do with minimal life experience and ability. I don't want to see what a grown adult that had decades of time to plan the next assault. I am asking you to give him life without parole.
Yes. Thank you. Case, is there anything else you want the court to know?
No, sir.
Thank you for being here. No further questions.
Thank you.
Questions?
Very briefly, is it Officer Clark?
Just Casey Clark now.
All right, Mr. Clark. It sounds like you had extensive training. Is that right?
Yes.
But it's still a high adrenaline job. Is that right?
Yes.
Your training gets you through that, right?
Correct.
But before you were injured, going through those woods, you were walking with a purpose, right?
Correct.
And I could hear you breathing heavy at points, right?
Correct.
You and the other officers were sort of stating directions really strongly, right?
Correct.
And that's that adrenaline of this situation, right?
No, that's the training. We want to be very clear. I think there's 8 to 10 people with us, all spread out. We want to make sure that it is clear and concise so that everyone hears it.
It seems like everybody is trying to make sure that eyes are everywhere, right?
Correct.
There's a clear awareness of the potential danger, is that right?
Correct.
And that's because of the situation that you're in, right?
Correct.
No further questions.
Thank you. Anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Judge.
Very much. We'll go ahead and recess for lunch and resume at 2:30.
Yes, Your Honor. Superior Court being recessed to 14:30 hours, 2:30 p.m.